So with that firewall fitting now, we've got to start working out our tunnel. So what I've done is I've made 1-inch spacers just out of packers and just taped them all in a few strategic spots. Probably need to actually make a few more. Might tape a couple like on the side of that shift lever, just in a few spots, just so I've got a couple more reference points. But what I've made up here is just like a little wire hoop that sits on that firewall nicely. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a forming buck over all this, and this will give us something to create our paper templates off and to start forming and making our tunnel shape. So we're going to try and hug it reasonably close to the gearbox and the dump pipe. So we've got, I sort of want that air gap around the dump pipe, a little bit of an air gap around the transmission. Yes, so what I've done is I've cut a heap of strips. They're just 20mm strips, nothing too fancy about them. And I'm just going to bend them into shape. Probably put all my front to backs first, and then I'll do a couple just to join it all together. That'll be able to sit in place. We'll make it clicko to the floor where we need it, and then we can pull it all out and make a sweet tunnel out of it. So yeah, I'm just going to start bending metal and making some shapes. I'm going to tack it all together so it's like one big solid unit. There we have it, folks. We've got, I'm hoping there's enough room in there for the starter motor. Part of me thinks the actual solenoid sits out here, so it might have to change. I sort of Googled it and a couple look like they come below, some are on the side. Just a bit of a variable. So that area may change at a later date. But either way, I've given it sufficient amount of room there. And I do know that that exhaust has to come around, turn here somewhere. So I've made sure that there's enough space, as much space as I can, as well as trying to keep some amount of room for the passenger. And with the driver's side, we've got that about a 1-inch gap in between there and the turbo. About the same sort of at the top of the bell housing. There's a couple of close spots, but it's not going to be any drama really. And same thing, tried to maximize the foot room because there's still pedals need to go through there. The steering column needs to get in there somewhere. Yeah, there's a lot more going on over here than we'd like, but it's all just stuff we'll have to work out later. What we know we're already going to have to move the column over, so it might end up with a weird dog leg through the side of that there. But what I want to do now is I want to work out where the shifter needs to sit, because I want this sort of be a pod. I want this to sort of roll off here somewhere, because that's where our top hat is underneath. It's about roughly, it's actually a little bit behind that, but that's good. We're going to go roughly there. So we know that the shifter needs, we want the shifter to sit about this, about here somewhere there. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to chuck the seat on. I'm actually going to hop up in there. So either way, it's tight in here. I'm actually a bit taller than the owner is, but it's tight. It's just the way the car is. It's a small car, it's custom. There's not a huge amount of space for pedals, not as much as I'd like, so it's going to be what it's going to be. But I want to get a better gauge of where this was going to sit. Now, I think about there isn't too far off. It's a bit odd, but it's about what it's going to want, because we want that shifter to sit
high enough where it's okay, but low enough where it's comfortable. It's also got to have a heim joint put on the side for the actual shift mechanism itself. So I've just grabbed a random one that I had laying around. It's a size too big, but that's all right. So it gets me roughly in the ballpark. But it does tell me I want this to sit virtually flush with the outside of the tunnel on my side here. So yeah, I'll probably gonna have to move that forward to about there actually. That was noisy. So that arm sits about there. That sits about there. It's about something like that. So yeah, this tunnel is a bit full on. There's a lot going on. So I'll hold this there and I'll show you with my other hand where it's going to go.
So as you can see, there's not a huge amount of room for pedals through there, but we'll work that out later. If I get my big hairy leg out of the way, this is roughly where the shifter needs to sit. You can sort of see how it needs to be roughly in the line of the tunnel. That's where it's got to sit, because this is a sequential box, so that where the heim is pivots off the little one of the gearbox, so it's quite a tight scenario. Alright, so spent a few more hours just adding in little pieces, you know, like just this little corner down here, and you know, this bottom strip. Even though the floor is going to come in there and it'll start to raise up, that's fine. But yes, same thing, just adding little strips just so I can get information on it. This just needs to, when I take it out, just needs to tweak around. But there you have that whole tunnel. Let me run around the other side. Oh, that firewall looks good. And you can see it there. Remembering we've given a little bit of space for the starter motor because it's a bit of an unknown. We've given ourselves plenty of clearance. The only thing that might change is there might be a funny cutout in this area for that reverse shifter there, which goes like that. But the actual main shifter being a sequential, the tiny movement. So I've got a bit of a plan for how I want to do that. But yeah, should be able to get plenty of info, paper patterns off that. So I just want to show you that this is completely removable now. I've just changed these grips over for Clecos. Now with this tunnel being completely removable, it means I can actually make pieces and fabricate a lot of it off on the bench. So, how's about that? Here it is on the bench. So now you can get a real idea of what we're looking at doing for this tunnel. And we're finally on to the bird cage, as I've affectionately called it. We're starting with our paper patterns. So paper is the easiest thing to work with when you're starting to develop a shape, something, especially something with so much shape. I can break down each piece into a manageable section. So yeah. So what I've done here is I've already laid out this paper. It's a bit hard to see on the camera. I'll drag you in closer. Come in, come in, come here, come here, come here, come here. Just turn the face tracking off, and you can see the paper pattern. So about there is my highlight line. So that is telling me where the start of the radius is going to be. Obviously this is the edge of the panel. It's neither here nor there. You can leave a little bit on there. I don't really need to because this already overlaps the tunnel because we've got that flange in there. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to cut my panel hard to that edge. I've left the bottom edge long because I can slip down beside the toe board. And where I've come around into this corner here, turn my pattern, I've just stopped it. I don't want to do the weld in the radius. I might actually change this piece down there. Now I think about it. This will come down. I'll probably put a cut. Probably cut that off in a minute. Through there. The other thing I've done, you can probably see, is I've got these little puckers up here. So they're going to be my shrinks. So I'm going to put the thumbnail dies in the power hammer and shrink that area up. This panel's fairly straightforward for me. It's a little bit of shrink on the corner. It's got a little bit of English wheel work through here, through this radius, which I've just marked center of, just about there. I'm just going to use the rubber band on the English wheel and just to get it to form over, because that's all it needs. It's just form, it's not a lot of shape. Remembering there is a difference between shape and form. Something can be in shape but out of form, but something that is in form isn't necessarily in shape. So yes, we're starting with this piece, fairly straightforward piece for me, for this piece. Next is going to be in there, and then we'll just work our way through the rest of the tunnel. I've got a deadline, remember, Motor X. So, less talking, more doing. Get that panel up, shrunk the corner. It's about there. Not a huge amount of gap in there. I'm not too stressed because none of these are perfect. So this is pretty even. Sitting about where I want it to. Tweak it down. Could just put a tiny little round of shrinks on that edge, just to tighten it up. It just sits a little flanged out. Other than that, it's about where we want that panel to sit. We can take a little extra off that later. That's looking pretty good so far. I'm actually happy with that piece. I'm going to click up to my wireframe. Sits there. You can see, just needs the tiniest bit more shrink in this area. That's fine, it's easy enough to do. And I'm going to do it. So this is the next piece. It is a bit of a tricky one because not only does it need to shrink to go that way, don't mind me. Where are we? But I put these little slits in here because that needs to stretch. So this is technically a reverse curve with a compound. It's a pretty complex panel. This one's going to take me the most amount of time. That's why it's next. So yes, I'm going to start by doing all my shrinks first, trying to get that shape sorted. And then I'm going to turn this back up and start to stretch all that area back out. And a lot of this this has to be stretched here, but it'll be blended by hand as well. So let's make that metal. Pew! So I missed a few steps and got busy with it. That panel you saw me just template out where I had the reverse curve and the compound.
I ended up actually splitting. I actually sort of grabbed another couple bits of metal, just folded at an angle and just stretched it until it sat and just popped it over, and then just made that one by shrinking it up, getting the radius nice. And then just the very top of the tunnel, which is a little bit of shrink up the very top. It's actually got a little bit of stretch and shrink just in this area, just to get it to start to flatten out where it needs to. And then, yeah, so there might be a little wedge I'll have to do there later, but I'll sort that out. But I've just started on this big panel. This one's not got a huge amount of shape. A little bit just up here, a little shrink just in the corner. Other than that, it's virtually straight and flat. So I'll get that one. What I'll do with my pencil, I actually go through and just sort of mark my hard edges. Just move that back. So it comes through here somewhere. And I've got a little shrink in there roughly. The panel's going to go roughly down there somewhere, just to make it a bit more manageable. And I know roughly the bottom's approximately there. I'm going to leave this just a hair long, so I can do that. There's a little bit of transition there, but it's more just a bit of shape. If I get my radius gauge, I think it was a 12 is what it was. No, must have been a 6. Yeah, it's about a 6 where that sat. As you can see there, note, 6-inch. I think this was what is essentially considered flat. So 0. I know right off the top. There's a 12 coming round here. So this is a 12-inch. Should be about the same there. No, just to play with that a bit more. About a 6. So that's a 12 this way, and it's a 6 this way. Make sure you always put a few notes on your panel. So yep, happy with that sort of thing. Pull those magnets off, I'll just trim it, throw it back on there. And actually, that's the other thing we needed to know. It's that panel join. It's actually roughly through there anyway. So those notes I made are just, they're irrelevant because it's just from there down. We go through there. There we go, we've got a few more pieces on. Starting to just close up the gaps. I saw that one just needed a little bit of
shrink in this area just to get it to flow into that corner. Might do this corner next just to fill it out. Shouldn't be too much, should just be a matter of rolling a piece into the corner. I might just try and come high, see if I can just lap the edge of it over, dress that out. And then we'll work on this funky section where there's a couple of reverses on themselves. So that might end up being like split right there somewhere. Not sure how that's going to work yet. I haven't templated it out, but you see that clamp comes off and just pull it up with your fingers. It's bugger all. Clamp on here. See what I mean? It's bugger all. It looks a bit funky in the camera. It's a little bit nicer in person. Just the way the light comes off it. But you can see that light line reflects nicely through there, which is what I'm looking for. And it just gets little bowls around the top. There's a little bit of a low spot just here, which I need to play with, but I'll do that later. Otherwise it comes round to the front. I've got that corner there nicely. Remembering all this is left long because we'll trim that all in the car. Yes. It's not fitting 100% to this, but it's all right because it just gives us a little bit more space. All the crucial elements are there. So I've been busy the last few days, haven't done any filming because I'm just trying to get these pieces made. You can see, turn the face tracking off, would you? Just chill out for a second, camera. You can see, made this side of the tunnel, done this funky reverse. It was easier to do that as a separate piece because it's way too much stretch to get out there. I could have had it attached to that piece, but it just fell in a weird spot, so I ended up with a little bit of a patchwork. The whole thing's got a lot of pieces in it, but that's okay. I've just done this one now, just smoothed up the corners. I bought that one. You see it? That one. I bought the mini English wheel from Heron Forbes. Makes it easier to do little spots like this. These tighter radiuses, just can't get them in the big English wheel. Now, I'm on to my final piece over here. So I'm going to template that up. Don't worry about this sitting up a bit springy. I'm sort of working out how I'm going to weld it together in sections now, because I do want to put some beads and bits and pieces in this before it goes completely together. Where are we? Here I am. Turn the face tracking on now. Yeah, no. So one more piece to make. Few bead details to add. They're going to be real simple, just like the back half of the tunnel, just a step bead. And then I do have to put a small hole here for the shifter because the lever off the gearbox is there. So yes, nearly there, getting there. One more to make. All my pieces are packed up. They're all sitting roughly in position. They're ready for trimming. Actually, a couple are ready for trimming and then beads. So the first panel I'm going to bead is this side piece. I'm going to mark the inside edge where our round bar is. And then, I put myself in frame. I'm going to sit it in the car that's over there. And I'm going to work out where it cuts to the floor. So I'll mark the floor piece and then I'll do my bead and then I might trim the floor. Or actually I'll probably leave it, do my bead, and then I'll start joining it to the piece up here. And then I'll move to the next piece. Yeah. So that is our first pattern. Pretty simple. It's going to look like something like that in there. Let's set up the bead roller. Alright, so I've already got these set. I've already done a sample. I sort of know what kind of step I want. What I need to check before I run this piece, because it does have that curve in it to start with, is which side I'm going to do it on. Now I already know because I've done a sample. And I already know which way this is going to be because I checked it before I did it on the camera. But I know I want that center, this center area to drop in. That's how I want it to look. So knowing that that bead's pushing up, that one's pushing down, I'm actually going to have it set up this way. So as I run through, the job actually passes through the throat of the bead roller, and I can do it. So now I know that, and I'm happy with how that's going to work. I'm going to bead roll because there's no other way to do it. I'm not going to do this in 2 passes. I want to do this in 1 pass. It's not always advised, but this is only a 1/8 step, so it's only about 3 mil drop. It's not a huge step. You can't. So yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. I've already set my gap between the two. So yes, I'm ready to do this. I've got this set, it's ready to go. There it is. Simple as that. So that's 1 done. A few more to go. So now I'm happy with this. Put it back on there. Work out the joining piece because there's gonna be a couple of pieces welded to it. So there's no other way to do it. I'm happy with that bead. I'm going to give it a quick wipe with some thinners. Actually, let's have a look, see what it looks like in the car. Ta-da! So I've set these couple of pieces back up. Got some blue tape on there. The blue tape is going to be, I'm actually going to trim this panel, the one that goes into the reverse. I'm going to trim this edge off. So the blue tape's just going to be my hard edge, my line. I'll just put a couple of clecos in so it still grabs that panel. Once I trim that off, I'll have this nice sharp straight line that I can then transfer onto that panel and cut that one down in turn. That'll then form where our joint is. Before I cut that panel, a couple of texture marks just so I can line it back up. I'm also going to do the same with this inner panel where that reverse is. Probably weld the smaller piece to the reverse first, and then I'll weld the big piece to that. So I'll get it all fit and make sure I'm happy with it before I weld anything. And then I'll probably dress all this, get it 100%, and then move on to the next piece of it. So, got a nice straight square line, you know, straight enough. But I've got a bit of differential in my panels. This is just caused from the overlap. When you start overlapping panels, you lose sight of where edges are touching, and you can't quite see it on the inside. So, because I've got 3 cleco holes, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this off, cleco them together. I'm actually just going to bump this in the hammer a little bit, just softly, and see if I can get this lower edge to stretch up. And then I come back, put the 2 back together. So I've skipped a step. I've got the inner welded, I've got the outer tacked. It's all the shape, actually fitting form pretty good, which is good news. Means I'm still in the right spot. All my overlaps have worked nicely. So yeah, I'll spin this around so you can have a look at it. You can still see I've just sanded it. So that was just check highs and lows. I know it's good to go. All the clecos still land in place. I've given it a quick smooth off with the pneumatic planisher. Same with the inside there, and it's come up pretty nicely. Feel happy with that one. Happy with how its radius is all sitting. So yeah. Time for some welding. So we've dressed this up now
sanded it inside and out. Quick hit on the air plenisher. It's come up looking Mickey Mouse, but when we sit it on here, we can line up two, but just pulled out of form a little. So the shape is still correct. Sorry, the form is correct, but the shape is wrong. And all I did there, I'm just squishing it in my hands. Which gets it back to about there. Alright, let's see how hard the clecos are to get in. One. So this is why we need to check things. Cool. What's going on here? That one goes in. It's still out of form, just a little bit. I think it just needs something like that. So you can see it's pulled up tight pretty well with the bark. A little gap, but I'm not too worried about it. So yeah, that is one of many pieces done. I think I will flip this cleco to the back side and find the hole. It's there. I'm now going to work on this top and side section. I think that's what I want to do. So I want to make this whole front section a big unit. Pieces in the car. There's no wire form under this anymore. It's all starting to sit here. But what I've just done is I've welded up this corner and I've laid out where I want the bead on this shape. And if I can get it up there and see where I've got, barely, you can see where I've got the bead drawn out on the top shape, on the top piece. So I've also got the side of this one done. What I'm going to do now is pull this out and pull that out, bead roll those two pieces, so I've got three shapes to bead roll. And then I'll put them back in, I'll start joining it to the far side, start working out this corner, so this front tunnel is just becoming a big piece. Then I'll start working on this back half. So yep, let's do some bead rolling. Got it out of the car. I was just trying to work out what my plan of attack would be, whether I would do, say, one of this joint or this joint first, or even that joint. What it's going to be is going to be the hardest one to get to at the end. So I need to do this joint here in the reverse curve first. Once it is done, I'll probably do that side piece, because then it's a weld there and a long weld there. So that should be pretty easy to work through. So again, spinning that around. This joint through here first, because it's going to be the hardest to dress. Once it's done, join this piece across here, down here,
and then that makes that like a section. Then I can either join this to that, or I probably will join this to all this then, and then it's just one long weld through there. So righto, let's mark this join. Tacked together, the shape's just a bit wild in that valley. So I've got my hammer set up. I've got a 1.5 inch lower, because that's what the radius is in the corner. And what I'm hoping for, trying to correct it a little bit, which it is going. Happy with that. Thinking is I've just got my 2-inch foam backing pad, so it's got a bit of flex. I've got a 3-inch, or just a bit of that, what is it? Velcro backed, sticky back, whatever you want to call it. Now this pad I've already used. I've already used that on the 3-inch Velcro back. What I'm going to do is I've just cut it down to a little square. What I'm hoping is be able to tuck it in there. And it kind of worked, but it wasn't quite abrasive enough. So I'm going to do the same thing with a 3-inch roll lock. Again, this is a pad I've already used. Hoping lets it in there. Now it definitely sanded in there, but still feels a bit funky. So I'm going to take it back to the hammer and tap it again, but I need to change my upper die to probably something with a bit more shape in it. The reason being is that's a 12-inch radius through there, or in that area. Pretty close to it. It's not really... it's not flat, that's the issue I'm having. 24 actually will work perfect, so I'm going to change that upper die. So I've got opposing, I've got on the bottom. I'll have a 1.5 inch on the bottom, because I'll have it that way. I'll have a 24 on the top to get into this corner a bit easier. Yeah, so I'm just going to go flip those over. So what I've ended up with, I've actually decided on a 6-inch radius at the top with the 1/4 inch radius on top, on the side, sorry, and I've got 1.5 on the bottom now. The reason I went to 6 is it just fits a little bit nicer in this corner. Come on, off we go. Oh yeah. Feels nice, looks nice, I'm sanded up nice. That
ready for welding. I'm happy with that. Probably set it up like that. Torch. Should work. Cut to welding time lapse.
I have skipped ahead a few steps again, remembering this is a paying job for me, so I've got to make sure I get it done in time. This Motor X is coming. So what I've done is, we can get it to look at the job. Welded in that corner, that's all done, smoothed into here, pretty. And I've just got all this side tacked on. Along to here, I've just finished dressing it up, working this funny reverse area. Happy with how it looks now. I got to weld it up. Once I've welded it up, I'm going to join on that other side piece. I'm going to trim the top of this down to suit that, and then it's looking like a big old tunnely shapy thing. Time for more welding.
Tunnel's nearly there. It's literally just this back section to do, which I've still got to make that allowance for where the shifter connects to. My plan of attack is I know roughly where it lines up with this piece, which is good. So I can start my square notch here. I know where this piece needs to land on there. So what I'll do is I'll put my little notch here. I'll notch it to fit the floor. I'll do that on both sides, get those cleccoed in position. And then I will start getting this one in position because I know where that needs to end up. It's got to end up right about there. So this shifter hole, it's going to be in that little square there. So I'll start taking a little piece out just in here somewhere because there's plenty of overlap on it. And I'll fit that till it goes down. But it's getting there. It's trimmed a bit nicer to fit the floor. I'm going to put a flange on it like I did on these center floor pans, and that'll just frame it all the way out. And then when I go to actually finally fit this, all I've got to do is cut along that seam, weld it together, which will be a whole other nightmare. But it's getting a lot closer. So yes, that's a job for the morning. I'm knackered. So I got a bit ahead of myself yesterday and I got this rear section of the tunnel done, but I forgot to film any of it. All I do need to do today, is I just want to tidy up these edges a little, tidy up the hole around the shifter. Just need to widen it a bit to go to the front, just doesn't have as much clearance as I'd like. And then I've got to add flanges to our floors just to tidy them up, sort of like it does with the rest of the floor. And this will make it easy when I go to weld the tunnel in, just cut it at the flange, zap it off. So yes, pull this out, get this covered up. I also need to orbital everything because it's it's not humid down here, but winter's getting close, so everything I touch is flashing off now. So yes, I just need to not oil it all up, easy faucet it all up, so it's sealed and protected because this car is going back to Melbourne and it's quite wet and rainy down there. So yes,
A little bit of tidy up on here today, flanges, and then we're done. Stage 1 done. I want to measure up this distance so I can make the flange for it. Now, obviously one way you can do it is with a tape measure like that. You know, say we're going to be 580, 600 probably. Now, I have quite a few different tape measures. This is a much thinner one. Push it in there. 35, 65. But what I prefer to use for a job like this is a dressmaker's tape. So these are obviously made for tailoring clothes, marking out patterns, and it's obviously very flexible. So it gives us a much more accurate amount. So we need about 585. So I'm going to cut my piece at 600 by probably 50 and just fold it up into an angle and then shrink and stretch it to fit that. So yeah, make sure you've got a variety of tape measures because you'll never know which one you'll need. So there it is, guys. I've added the last couple of flanges, cleaned everything. I've given it a coat of Easy Foss from Oxytec. Thank you to Scotty at Oxytec for that. I'm just putting the last couple of screws in because this car is going back to Melbourne tomorrow. So if you want to see it, make sure you get down to Motorex on the 3rd and 4th of May, which might have been by now. Actually, it's already been Motorex. So hopefully you saw it at Motorex. But yes, hopefully this video gives you an idea of what goes into all this custom metalwork. There is so much involved, so many hours involved, so many little tedious bits. So yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on the Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'll see you next time with Backyard Builds.